Hello and welcome to Herein Lies the Peace of God in the Awakening Together Sanctuary. The Awakening Together Sanctuary is an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. The host of Herein Lies the Peace of God is Reverend Jacquelyn and Eckert, the President Minister of Awakening Together. Our co-host is your favorite anarchist preacher, Reverend Glen Ganaway, integral scholar. The Course in Miracles says this about discerning one truth. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Sing glory, glory, hallelujah. How wonderful thy holy name. Now I can see with God's own vision, and I see peace instead of pain. Yes, I see peace instead of pain. I can see peace instead of pain. Amen.
Doggies. Well, Glenn, we can't hear a word you're saying.
Maybe that'll help.
Maybe.
I know we did practice and everything and got all ready to go, and we got a new microphone about 2 weeks ago, and both Yolanda and I are still it turns on and off, so we're still remembering to turn on because I can hear my voice all the time. You know, I don't have to turn the volume on and off or remember any of that. So thank you for reminding me to let you hear what's going on in my head. You know, otherwise, you know, my mother has and I come from a long line of people who have really voices that carry, but I don't think my voice will carry all the way to Colorado.
No, probably not. Or any of the other locations represented here.
We've got a really wonderful program here tonight. I can't wait to get into talking about this because this is I've been kind of waiting for this one. You know, have you been? Did you enjoy working on this one this week, Jacquelyn?
Yeah, I got to tell you that for me, this idea of competition and conflict has resonated throughout the week. It's just like
me too.
I've been real aware, particularly after reading this, of when I am choosing those options or that as an option, competition and conflict.
I've realized how often my default setting as a cisgendered guy is to put my dukes up. You know, my first response is to put my dukes up, you know, and like say, oh, well, you know, that I'm being challenged. So now there's a, you know, I have to initiate some kind of power over dynamic to, you know, and competition and getting what, yes, there's really interesting descriptions of the world this time. She uses some really wonderful phrases to talk about the systems and institutions that we live in and their foundations, which is really interesting to think about. So ask the question so people will know what we're going to talk about. What's the question? Because we're doing the manual for teachers, so every chapter is a question, right? So what's the question this week?
The question for tonight is, how can the perception of order of difficulties be avoided?
Order of difficulties. That's like chapter 1 in A Course in Miracles. It's like there's no order of difficulty in miracles. That's practically like the first sentence in A Course in Miracles, you know? So we're going to talk about some foundational ideas here.
It occurred to me earlier, not earlier enough that I had an opportunity to research it, but it occurred to me, isn't there, maybe you'll remember the quote, it's like you either believe this entirely or not at all. Isn't there a quote like that here in A Course in
Oh,
Miracles somewhere?
I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm really bad at quotes. Really, really bad at quotes. Yeah, well, there's no partial truth.
Yeah.
It's kind of what she says. There's no partial, you know, there's no partial God. There's no like a little bit pregnant. It was to
Yes.
say in the world. There's no little bit pregnant. So either you've crossed over there's no mixing of the truth and illusion. There isn't a little bit of illusion makes the truth go farther. You know that that's not the case. Like but a little bit of truth makes the illusion believable. No, 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 no. A little bit of truth obliterates illusion. But we really don't think like that. And you can see marketing in that as well. You can see discernment, our own individual levels of normalized discernment. It's like, what's my perspective? What really is my perspective? Where do I come? What am I looking at the world as and from? And that's the principal thing of A Course in Miracles. We make poor decisions because we don't know who we are, right? We think we're this set of ideas or stuff. I just got through doing chapter 28 in A Course in Miracles. So this is the undoing of fear, which is all about what do you do when you're afraid? What do you really do when you're threatened? When when we're afraid. When you're afraid for your kids, or you're afraid for your job, or you're afraid for whatever. What do we do in the world that says fear is valuable and a truly motivating force? So that's a lot of what chapter 28 is. And then like right on top of this is this lesson of hierarchies and perspectives and and value, and what you were saying, competition, and like my default setting and the internal so valuable to me. Regina's idea of original software. It's like the software that I was loaded into me. When I was a kid, when I was just a sponge. I'm not vetting. I don't have a virus program. I wasn't vetting any of the programs that the world was giving me. Comparing them against the truth to see whether I want to install this or not. It just all got downloaded. I didn't have really thing, and so I spent the rest of my days kind of unpacking and looking at the consequences of those beliefs. Right? If I could even do that, So I'm really
if you have enough self-awareness to do that, even.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of help. But I read so we're coming in on the heels of 2 weeks of talking about healing, right? So we move from, we first talked about trust, and we talked about the 7 stages of trust, and now we talk about the qualities of the teachers of God. It ended up with gentleness and integrity. Remember all those things? It's she's given us this perspective. It's like, can we inhabit? She goes, the teacher of God is like this. So you should inhabit this mindset, inhabit this perspective. And then she moves what is healing? Because we're really often think that we're a mind trapped in this body, this incredibly sexy, really smart body, but I have a mind that's just trapped in here. I can't get out. It's like I'm limited. Challenging those perspectives has been really very good. And this back and forth with doing this with you and doing our class on Wednesdays, hit us up, Yolanda at yolanda.net, if you'd like to know a little bit more information about our Wednesday class. It's a private class. But doing these two things together has been such a, it's almost like being on a retreat all the time. Because it's like now I'm teaching and preparing more days of week than I'm not. Right. So doing this with you and we've kind of flipped what we do on, over into another stage. Mm-hmm. So Yolanda and I are moving into our lifestyle is kind of changed. The way we get up in the morning and what we do and we need to accomplish and things like that. Our perspective has really has changed a lot. especially over COVID, and especially over, getting, you know, trying to do all this over again, going out to work and then back to work, and, all of this, and deciding to teach and experience and look into and read what I love instead of what I feel an obligation for. Like Yolanda and I have talked a lot about how letting go, and this is tonight's lesson. How do we let go of obligation? How do we let go of that subtle manipulation or the subtle guilt we were talking? Like Steiner was talking about, the subtle guilt of needing to do something, behave in a certain way or perform virtue and things like that. But I read last time. So can you read first this time?
I can. I will read, and then you will teach, and I will pick apart your teaching. So
No
that's
problem.
the way I like it.
I know. Shoot it down, please.
All right. So let me read. Here we go. Again, this is how can the perception of order of difficulties be avoided? It's from, I think it's section or chapter 8 of the teacher's manual.
It is.
So here we go. Good. The belief in order of difficulties is the basis for the world's perception.
Yes.
It rests on differences, on uneven background and shifting foreground, on unequal heights and diverse sizes, on varying degrees of darkness and light, and thousands of contrasts in which each thing seen competes with every other in order to be recognized. A larger object overshadows a smaller one. A brighter thing draws the attention from another with less intensity of appeal. And a more threatening idea, or one conceived of as more desirable by the world's standards, completely upsets the mental balance. What the body's eyes behold is only conflict. Look not to them for peace and understanding. Illusions are always illusions of differences. How could it be otherwise? By definition, an illusion is an attempt to make something real that is regarded as of major importance, but is recognized as being untrue. The mind, therefore, seeks to make it true out of its intensity of desire to have it for itself. Illusions are travesties of creation, attempts to bring truth to lies. Finding truth unacceptable, the mind revolts against truth and gives itself an illusion of victory. Finding health a burden, it retreats into feverish dreams. And in these dreams, the mind is separate, different from other minds, with different interests of its own, and able to gratify its needs at the expense of others. Where do all these differences come from? Certainly, they seem to be in the world outside. Yet it is surely the mind that judges what the eyes behold. It is the mind that interprets the eye's messages and gives them meaning. And this meaning does not exist in the world outside at all. What is seen as reality is simply what the mind prefers. Its hierarchy of values is projected outward, and it sends the body's eyes to find it. The body's eyes will never see except through differences. Yet it is not the messages they bring on which, let me try and read that sentence again. Yet it is not the messages they bring on which perception rests. Only the mind evaluates their messages, so only the mind is responsible for seeing. It alone decides whether what is seen is real or illusory, desirable or undesirable, pleasurable or painful. It is in the sorting out and categorizing activities of the mind that errors in perception enter, and it is here correction must be made. The mind classifies what the body's eyes bring to it according to its preconceived values, judging where each sense datum fits best. What basis could be faultier than this? Unrecognized by itself, it has itself asked to be given what will fit into these categories. And having done so, it concludes that the categories must be true. On this, the judgment of all differences rests, because it is on this that judgments of the world depend. Can this confused and senseless reasoning be depended on for anything? There can be no order of difficulty in healing merely because all sickness is illusion. Is it harder to dispel the belief of the insane in a larger hallucination as opposed to a smaller one? Will he agree more quickly to the unreality of a louder voice he hears than to that of a softer one? Will he dismiss more easily a whispered demand to kill than a shout? And do the number of pitchforks the devils he sees carrying affect their credibility in his perception? His mind has categorized them as real, and so they are real to him. When he realizes they are all illusions, they will disappear. And so it is with healing. The properties of illusions which seem to make them different are really irrelevant, for their properties are as illusory as they are. The body's eyes will continue to see differences, but the mind which has let itself be healed will no longer acknowledge them. There will be those who seem to be sicker than others, and the body's eyes will report their changed appearances as before, but the mind will put them all in one category. They are unreal. This is the gift of its teacher, the understanding that only two categories are meaningful in sorting out the messages the mind receives from what appears to be the outside world. And of these two, but one is real. Just as reality is wholly real, apart from size and shape and time and place, for differences cannot exist within it, so too are illusions without distinction. The one answer to sickness of any kind is healing. The one answer to all illusions is truth.
Oh, there's so many T-shirt moments in that. I just cannot even like begin to like. There's like a dozen T-shirt moments, and the last one. I mean, the last one is perfect. The one answer to all illusions is truth.
It's true.
You know, but how rare do we make this idea of truth? You know, we don't think that it's so, we don't think it's truth is nearly as common as illusions are. You know, we think, the illusions is all out there, but we have to search and uncover the truth, right? That even that perspective is problematic, because the perspective that she's asking us to take is of a healer, of a miracle worker. And miracles in the Course in Miracles are about giving away the presence of peace, making it when everything is okay and we're all a cooperative component with what is and what works. Then it looks like miracles are happening. It looks like the strange, the unusual, the perfect, the flow happens. But that's when everything is on board. Like there's nobody resisting their good, nobody resisting what is. It's absolutely the fundamental perspective change she has on recognizing our default setting at looking at hierarchies, calling them real, and then creating more hierarchies because the promise of safety that is there for us. Healing is danger. Healing is alternately really super desirable and also really, really, really dangerous. Because if we identify with our healing, you take away my identification as this broken person, right? This I am bad. You take away my badness, and I am bad. I hear Michael Jackson in my head doing the little, I'm bad. You know it. I'm bad. I had. So you take that identity away from me, and I've experienced this like wanting to be like a bad boy or wrong or problematic or dangerous, as a desire, as value. So even though we can say in our hierarchies, in creating our hierarchies, that it's better to be this way and it's better to be that way, that's not how I act. I value being a bad boy, or being a problematic, or being a bully, or being always right, or people being afraid of me. I don't know about you, but I grew up with a whole society that says I would rather you be afraid of me than love me.
Mm-hmm. Fear or revere me. I don't care either way.
Yeah.
As long as I'm different. Yeah.
Right. And that's an identity, and that's an identity and a perspective and all of that. And I think it's very difficult for a lot of us to climb out of that, So, with that being said,
Well, and let me say one
no,
thing
please.
about what you just said, and that is that the phrase that kept going through my mind was the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, right? So any identity, right? Just
Right.
let me be the bad boy or or even the screw up or whatever it is, but at least I know who I am.
And there's value in it, and I have a place, and people know who I am, and then there's the crazy girl, there's the insane girl, there's the whatever it is, I have a place and I have identity. I fit. Yeah. I'm known. I'm connected. I can connect in these really ways. This is really close to my heart, because the definition of anarchy is without an outside leader. I call myself an anarchist preacher because I'm not motivated by threats of violence. I don't think that anybody is truly motivated to their own will and their own healing through threats of violence. So that's a lot of what she's talking about here is hierarchy has power only because we give it power, power over us. And it isn't the same, and it isn't the real power that she's been talking about for 669 pages of A Course in Miracles. It's the real power is right here and right now, and it's a shared power, and it's completely horizontal. There's no place on the planet where you can go that God is more present. Right? There aren't hierarchy of longitudes and latitudes. There aren't hierarchies of any of this. There's just preferences, and preferences aren't bad, but they really do need to be seen or understood as my perspective. It's my preference and not the truth. But that's a lot of dialogue that happens on social media right now. It goes, say, well, that's just your opinion, man. Well, no, there's the rainbow consists of this refracted colors. This is an opinion, this is an opinion, and we see, so we don't even let truth be that, because our value system, and of course our value, because we dismantle and dismantle hierarchies and reconnect them when our values change. And in chapter 28, because I'm reading it, she says the central motivation of the world is comfort. Is this my comfort? Is this for my comfort? But she offers in the first paragraph the belief. She says, the belief in the order of difficulties is the basis for the world's perspective. Some things are harder than others to fix. That's just what, some things are supposed to be harder and most impossible to fix. Like, we can't fix racism. We can't fix misogyny. We can't fix the environment. We can't fix, it's just the problems are just too big. Well, the truth is that that's never been the case. And she says over and over and over again that if we're creating the problem and the perspective, then we can also uncreate it. We can also, if we have the ability to destroy this or whatever, we have the ability to heal it. That those things ride together. The solution travels with the problem. And we think some things are just too impossible to accomplish. So we don't even ask the question, how could I not act on my homophobia? How could I not act on my misogyny, even though I've got the programming? She's asking us to see the perspective, see it, and do something different. And the world will change. In fact, the metaphor she uses in A Course in Miracles for when we're all working together and everything, and we're in the flow and the miracles happen, she calls it a feast. A feast in which you brought everything you had and everybody else brings everybody they have, and there's enough for everybody forever and ever and ever. That's the metaphor in A Course in Miracles, she said, when everybody's working together and doing and working and cooperating with what is. It's the sermon, it's the loaves and fishes story. That if we look around and everybody, if everybody's inventory is taken together, we have more than enough for everybody to have more than enough. But
by the way, Rev Yolanda, I think you gave Glenn too much coffee today. I'm just saying.
I haven't. I only had one cup of coffee today. This is why this lesson is so fun for me. What the body's eyes behold is only conflict. Look not to them for peace and understanding. Right? The perspective inside of materialism is this idea that getting over on anybody. Now, that's not the way nature works. That's man's view that it's better to be a wolf than a rabbit. But, you know, it's not true. We need rabbits as well as we need wolves. Wolves don't exist without rabbits. So which is more important, the wolf or the rabbit? You know, both are. There's not a hierarchy there. Something that she's really beautiful at telling us. The worldview is hierarchies are value. They're just are value, and the world in conflict is presented as just the way it is. Then there's no peace here. There's no understanding. You know, and does any of this like sound familiar? You know, to the world that we live in. Like cue Elvis Costello. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? You know. It's just not interesting. And so illusions are always illusions of differences. That's another t-shirt moment. Illusions are always illusions of differences. I get to have preferences, but they're not value differences. They're preference differences. You know? That's great. Let's all have preference differences, you know, because everybody can't live at the same longitude and latitude. I don't want everybody to move to Vermont. I love Vermont, but I really do not want the entire planet to move to Vermont. You know, that makes no sense. It's not, Vermont isn't the better place to be. It's where I am led to do the work that I need to do. You know, that's not a hierarchy. That's everybody working together for our own, you know, for the good and the expression of the wholeness. Illusions are travesties of creation in the attempt to bring truth, or to bring truth to lies. Illusions are travesties of creation. And what came to mind to me is illusions are like the movie versus the real thing. You know, like you can watch a biography of somebody's movie and be totally moved and be like really just amazing, but you didn't watch their life. You did not watch what happened in their life. You know, we just didn't. And that's not a bad thing, but it is needed to be understood as not the truth. And she calls this idea, or what I call this is the revolt against the truth. Illusions are an attempt to make something real, literally from our desire. I desire this, so therefore I want it to be this way. It's a form of possession. It's the origins of property, and it's the origins of property management and ownership. She calls this a travesty of creation. And the truth is just unacceptable because I don't want the truth. I want victory. And you know how she describes victory? Feverish dreams. You know, the dreams, the victory are feverish dreams where health is a burden of separate minds and separate interests. We gratify our needs at the expense of others. That's a hierarchy. I get it first. I have access to it first. It means that my needs, or whatever I think, or my opinion, or my belief, is fundamentally more valuable than somebody else's perspective. Not the truth, because it's never based on the truth. Because it was based on the truth, we would know immediately that we already have enough. And this idea to gratify our needs at the expense of others is a travesty. And it all sounds very, very, very familiar. We all have had that job. We have all have been in those situations. Then the next part I wanted to highlight was what is seen as reality, and she's using the quotes reality because she means not reality. What is seen as reality is simply what the mind prefers. Its hierarchy of value is projected outward and sends the body's eyes out to find it. That's a confirmation bias and everything else we know. We only look at what we want to. We only look at what we want to see till we aren't challenged on anything. we need to be very wary about that. Go.
No, I was just going to say, isn't it interesting how Google and Facebook algorithms have taken that to a ridiculous level?
Engagement, because engagement sells advertising. The goal of that is not to provide truth or connection or conversation or anything. It's to keep the drama, conflict, the word, it's to keep the conflict happening so that page is viewed again and again and again. And the advertisers and Facebook can say these people were on the page that your advertisement went. That's what they're supposed not. So just like understand what we're using and why we're using it. Where, so I wrote.
Sorry.
So yes, sorry. I don't know. I guess I was like having fun. I said, so where do differences come from, Grandpa? Where do differences go? Where do differences grow? Well, there are no and so it says there aren't differences. Virginia, there are no hierarchies in nature. There's only what works. Only the mind is responsible for seeing, right? Because we're making up opinions. We're saying I need to go this way. I need to go that way. I'm going to follow the tracks to get the rabbit or something like that. These are really valuable skills, but they don't speak to the truth. They don't speak to a truth that you can share with anybody else, because it's material, and I can't do that. And only the mind is responsible for seeing. It makes a decision: is this pleasurable or desirable or not? And then I wrote in my little notes: so what is a consumer for 100, Alex? We find ourselves in the marketplace, doing this, and to be honest about this perspective is just really freeing for me. So this is what she says. So then she says, in the sorting out and categorizing activities of the mind that errors in perception enter. On this, the judgment of all differences rests. All differences. On my categorize of the mind about whether it's desirable or not, or whether I can potentially, it promises pleasure for me. Can this confuse reasoning? Can we depend on this for anything? Can we really depend on that decision-making mechanism? No, of course not. The very act of creating hierarchies creates disaster that we're trying to avoid. It's judging the stream of sense datum. How about that for sociology research? She goes, that is your, datum, the datum that comes in, that you're judging it based on your, you're not supposed to, that's not the scientific method. You're not supposed to do that. You can get thrown out of your job for having a wrong perspective or being so biased, right? You're a judge. They tell you all your extra, they tell you all this. Bias is the anathema to making a good decision. You need to be able to see all of the, up and down and all of this. It's a really good way to. So I quoted in chapter 28. So in chapter 28, the undoing of fear, how I call it how to manage the hegemony, or how to manage the glistening dream, because that's what she calls this, the dream that glistens. It's a dream that's like attractive. It's glistening. So she says that her formula is to become calm and quiet and peaceful. Find that calm, quiet, and peaceful. Observe without desire. And the way that she says this is, clutch them not with eager hands. So, clutch the world not with an eager hand. I love that. And to take my opinion out of the world. And she said, and when I do that, I can let the world be vacant. What happens is inner wisdom steps in and fills the void. The voice that likes me comes in and steals enters the void, and helps me to choose the miracle, choose presence, to choose what works, to choose cooperation, to choose connection and wholeness and completeness, and to do what is ours to do without judgment, and not try to climb a hierarchy. And to concluding here, there can be no order of difficulty in healing, because sickness is the illusion. The properties of illusions which seem to make them different are irrelevant. Can we put that up on the wall? The properties of illusions which seem to make them different are irrelevant. The differences between us and each other and the way we think and our perspectives are irrelevant, for their properties are illusory as they are. Means they don't have a problem. They don't have to have consequences. So they could be art, it could be play, it could be fun, it could be like, oh, you like to do this and you like to do this, and we'll go to this movie, and you like Marvel movies and I like, it's like it could be just fun to be different, right? Instead of a conflict to be different, it could be fun. And here she describes the patient. I loved this description because she uses pitchforks. So who do you think this patient is that needs healing, that's being chased around by pitchforks? The I am bad belief. The part that we need to like wrestle to the ground, and the part of us that's so horrible that we want to get rid of. That's hierarchy. That's part of me I like, part of me I don't like. This is the part that works. This is the part that doesn't work. I'm going to exercise the part that I don't like. She asks us not to do that, to look at that voice, to look at this voice of that monster that we think is our inner monster that's being chased, that we're chasing with pitchforks, or we think the world is chasing with pitchforks. This is the gift of the teacher, the understanding that only two categories are meaningful. That reality is wholly real. There's another t-shirt we can put up. Reality is wholly real, and illusions have no distinctions. So, and let ourselves be healed. We will see these differences, but not create hierarchies. That's her description of healing. To heal is to participate with the truth. Reality is wholly real. That's why we don't need hierarchies, because reality supplies everything in its proper place in time. There is no more or less part of the whole, as we started this out. There's nobody that's less deserving. There's nobody that's less valuable. There's nothing that's less necessary. It's all necessary, down to every little bug and bee in all of this. Even getting it wrong and hurting my feelings and losing my mind is necessary. Hitting bottom is sometimes necessary. Getting my feelings hurt, having my heart broken, brought me here. What do I know that's not necessary? There isn't the best way to get here, the best way to learn. I wish there was. But there only is if I'm paying attention. If I'm calm, cool, and collected, looking at the world without judgment, so Holy Spirit fills in the meaning, and not me with my clutchy hands, reaching in and snatching the truth right out of reality, snatching reality or illusion from the truth, or however we want to say it. So it is, the truth in all of this is undividable. And that means no hierarchies, no differences, and that's powerful. The illusion, the differences are illusory. So I don't have to concern myself with them. Mm-hmm. And I can be much more energetic about doing what is mine to do. And that's what I have.
Wow. It's a good thing you talked that fast.
I know.
Because that was a lot packed in there.
Stop the clock. Releasing my time.
Thank you for that. It's I really appreciated what you had to say about all of that. I think that you said this in many different ways, but I think that the fundamentals of this section are very, very simple. Yeah. There's only one thing going on here. And we desire to see more than one thing going on here. We desire to see these differences because we want to be what A Course in Miracles calls special. We want to be somebody. like you said as you began, right? I want to be the bad boy or the screw up or the fun girl or whatever it is. But I want to be different.
Yeah.
And I want to be a better different than you are.
Mm-hmm.
She points to that in the beginning, this whole idea of competition and conflict, because I think there's more than one thing going on here, because I think there's the opportunity to be called out of the lineup as special, because I believe that very idea creates the idea of competition, and with competition comes conflict. The truth is there's only one thing going on here, and you can choose which of those systems of thought you want to adhere to. Only one of them is true. There's only one thing going on here. The thought system that says there are differences and I need to get to the top of the heap, that's obviously the illusion. And you talked about this a while ago in terms of being victorious. Ego truly believes that everything is a zero-sum game. There's a winner and there's a loser, and by God, I'm not going to be the loser. Right? I mean, it's just the way ego is oriented. She says on the second page, don't know why I'm starting here, but I am. It's in the sorting out and the second page of our reading. It is in the sorting out and categorizing activities of the mind that errors in perception enter, and it is here correction must be made. So in a real practical way of looking at this is, like you said, it's okay to have preferences, right? But what I really need to do is look at my desire to express my opinion. Look at my desire that things be different than they are. Because what am I really doing? I'm reinforcing the false self, my go-to guy. My go-to guy is either inner wisdom or the false self. And if I'm noticing differences, if I'm comparing myself to other people, if I'm going, this ain't right and things need to be different, it's just strengthening my allegiance to the false self. And of course, there's a number of ways, practical ways to address that. Like I just said, an excellent exercise is to not express an opinion when you have one. Just don't express it, and see how much that guy squirms then, right?
Or me. I'm often the one that.
Well, I said that guy. I mean.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm the one that's squirming, like going.
It's like, oh no, you're wrong, and let me tell you why, right?
Oh, I know.
Let's look at it from my perspective. It's funny. This idea keeps coming up in my mind, so I'm just going to share it. I knew a fellow once who really thought he knew the best way to do everything, but he said, I don't understand why people. He says, I've lived a long time. I've got a lot of experience. I don't understand why people won't take my advice. And I said, called him by his name, and I said, everybody thinks that. You're not the only one that feels that way, right? We all think, I've got all this experience, I've got all these great ideas. Why won't, there, and that makes the truth. And that's what she's saying. She's saying this whole hierarchy thing that you've built up is based on programming and slights and insults that you've suffered and your faulty perception of what's occurred in the past. None of that is real. And you're going to base your whole world on that? Yeah, that's insanity. That's what creates that insane patient. So the only escape from that insanity is to throw the whole thing out and go, this is what's here. Yep. This must be what's supposed to be happening. Now, it doesn't mean that I have to blindly reach in the cooler at the grocery and eat whatever ice cream I pull out. I can still buy chocolate ice cream if I prefer chocolate over vanilla, right? So like you said, you can have preferences, but those have to be held lightly.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand that when you have a preference, that's all it is, that it's not better than the other guys, or it's not a hard-won knowledge of how the world works.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply a preference.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply a preference. So the other tool that or a tool that we've been given to really bring this home, to really heal in the way that she's suggesting healing occurs, is the loving all method. It's here, so it must be what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I can love it because it's here. If I can't love it, then I can choose to I can't remember what that hierarchy. I can choose to accept it, right?
Yeah.
And another way that we can go about that is I can choose to accept how I feel about what's happening, right? Go ahead.
No, for me, that was the really big turning point when I was calm and cool and collected enough, or had enough self-esteem. I don't know what it was. It was like, I don't need to insert myself. I'm giving myself permission to insert myself or not insert myself. Yes. So when I said, oh, I can have these feelings or have this idea or have a thought or a difference or something like that, without needing to step on somebody, for it, or like even for it to be known, Yeah.
Well, and I did the same thing. I practiced a similar exercise with not making anybody wrong. And you wouldn't think that you do that very much, but if you look, yeah, you spend your day doing that, right?
Often.
Somebody writes you an email asking for something. You're like, oh, well, I told you several times before, but here it is. Just it's subtle things like this where we attempt to say, this is what's right. You've clearly missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's
all
habit,
of these.
and that's pattern and habit and social cues and not it's not even it's below even awareness. It is
below awareness.
It's so casual.
And that's why it's so helpful to take any of these practices and do it. And this week I'm going to work on this, and I'm going to work on, making people wrong, and I'm going to work on comparing myself to others, or work on not expressing my opinion. Whatever it is, it's training that light of awareness on what you're doing. And what are you doing? You're making the choice over and over and over again for which one of those thought systems you're going to give allegiance to.
Right. What world do I want to experience?
Yeah. What do I want to experience? And if I want to experience conflict and competition, and comparison, yeah, I can do that.
I'm going to win all those fights.
You have to step back and say, how am I reinforcing this? How am I doing this every day in my life? And pick one. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It really doesn't matter.
No.
Is it opinions? Is it judgments?
Nope.
Is it comparisons? It doesn't matter, but
Nope.
pick one and focus on that, so that if you don't shine the light of awareness on it, it will just continue. Like you said, it'll run under the radar, out of force of habit.
Well, I would say that if you aren't working for what you want, you're working for somebody. You're working for what somebody else wants.
That's right. Well, you're working for what ego mind or thinking mind wants, and that is simply to exist.
Yeah.
Simply to exist. Yeah.
At the top of the heap. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, preferably at the top of the heap, but as long as I exist, I'm cool, right? Let me see what else is in here that I didn't know I was going to talk about. I do know. She says, let's see. The mind, therefore, seeks to make illusion true out of its intensity of desire to have it for itself. And, I've been reading Michael Berg's The Way about the Kabbalah recently. And he says that the let me see if I can get this out. He says that what the goal is to transform this desire to receive only for the self into the desire to receive in order to share. So,
Oh,
so it's human nature to want to receive for myself, and because I think there is a self, then obviously, like you said a while ago, I have to have these hierarchies, and then I've got to categorize what's happening in terms of these hierarchies I've built. That's what the desire to receive only for the self is. It's this mistaken belief that there is a separate self that can win or lose. And so again, the very simple lesson is there's only one thing going on here, and it's good. So
the discovery of that, like, can be, I think, is a lot more available. I think the discovery that, I'm not a self, and I'm not my thoughts, and I'm not my feelings, I think is a lot closer, like, as I started out this conversation, than we really give it credit for. This dropping of the hierarchies, this dropping of needing to enforce my opinion or needing to be the big man in the room, the alternatives to that, or not, the healing, that what she's called healing, to, like, recognize your own monsters, like, oh yeah, I think I'm being chased by pitchforks right now, and now I have to defend myself, right? Just as, like, oh, can I be with this feeling and not have to, like, what did you say to me?
yeah, and not have to jump on, yeah, and not have to jump on the ego bandwagon, not have to jump into that system of thought. Can I sit with this uncomfortable feeling or this attacked feeling or whatever it is, and not go pick up those same ego thinking mind tools? Can I do it?
Yeah. And I want to just underline that it's way easier than what I thought it was going to be to do. That mental activity of letting go, forgiveness, all, it has such rewards. Taking my need to clutch the world and organize it, categorize it for my own comfort is what the lessening of doing that. Each time I catch my moving in that direction, because I'm participating with the whole system that's doing that. I mean, so it's not just me, but the more of us that do that, the more it shapes the land. It shapes the world.
Because there's only one thing going on here, and
right.
it's the dawning of the light in the one mind. That's it.
Yeah. So we all have that responsibility to be ourselves, to give away everything that we've been given. I think.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a really beautiful way of putting it. That's right. It's not an attempt to clutch, like you said, to clutch for myself. That's going to engender all of these things that we've talked about. It's going to engender allegiance to that thought system. So on a practical level, what we have to do is just start to making inroads in that. And train awareness on how am I doing that? How am I reinforcing illusion?
Yeah, that I'm losing out. Yeah, that I'm losing out. That I can lose. That somebody has an advantage. It's not fair. It's just a lot of stuff on fairness and justice in the Course in Miracles, and this and being a miracle worker is asking all of us to be at the front edge of this thought system. That's what the miracle worker is. It's like being the example of it, not trying to gather, get a bunch of people to see that you're doing it right, but that's called grift. So when we could I be this attractive force? Can I bring the feast instead of
bring the feast? Yes.
Demanding that everybody like and eat what I have? Because it's just, it couldn't be that way. I wouldn't want it to be that way. I don't want to eat one thing for the rest of my life. or one cuisine for the rest of my life. You know, my mother's a great cook, but I don't want to eat only her food, you know, even though it's great and I think it's wonderful.
Well, and let me say something else. You said something. I paraphrased it here in my notes. That miracles seem like they're the unusual thing.
Yeah.
Yes, and this other system of thought, it seems the normal thing, and that's because it is our go-to thought, our go-to thought system. It's funny. I heard, I think Ann Blanchard taught on Wednesday from Helen Hamilton. I think she was talking about this same thing. It's like, if you look for the miracle, you see, there's no reason that the error should be the standard thing, right? The default. Looking for the miracle, you'll find that it's in at least as great an abundance,
Yep.
as error thought, and so it really is a two-part. You know, again, whatever you're going to work on. You know, this week I'm going to work on opinions or whatever. It's a two-part thing, because, like you said, when you do that, when you see it, when you're able to call it out and not act on it, it's replaced with inner wisdom. It's replaced with the flow of the universe. It's replaced with the truth of what we are. It's replaced with the love in our hearts. So that's what's available to us.
And we don't have to go anywhere. You know, there isn't a special place. There aren't special words. There aren't, you know, but if I can just remember that I want to experience what is, and learn to appreciate and be curious. So for me, it's appreciating and be willing and be curious to know what is. And like, not say, I even know. I'm not even willing to say, I want what is because I know because that's what I like. I'm not even willing to go there. I want what is because that works. That's going to bring, you know, that's going to actually fundamental paradigm. You know, the phrase you were talking, the phrase that came to mind when you were speaking was miracles are like dark matter. The formula for the earth, the formula for physics doesn't work unless you've got mostly dark matter.
That's right. You can't see it, but it's there.
Right. Can't see it, can't measure it, but there's all this, like most of the world isn't here. That's a miracle, I think.
Listen, this has been a lovely discussion. It looks like we're out of time.
Alrighty, I know what that means. I should know what that means. I don't.
Thank you all for being here.
Truly,
we really appreciate you being here and holding the space for us. No kidding.
Yep.
You've been listening to Herein Lies the Peace of God with Reverend Jacquelyn Eckert and Reverend Glen Ganaway. To find out more about Jacquelyn and to donate to Awakening Together Sanctuary, go to www.awakening-together.org. To find out more about Glen and to donate to the Mighty Companions Ministries, go to www.glenganaway.com. That's GLENGANAWAY.com.
Instead of pain.
Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight.
Thank you.
And next week will be Thanksgiving. We will not be meeting next week. We'll see you the week after.
No. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And don't
Love
be
you all.
fooled by the glistening dream.
That's right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Nighty
Thank you,
night.
Jonah.
Thank you. Have a great Thanksgiving.